To receive light transmission from the creators of this planet, the Amen Being or the Omni Being, for the purpose of you becoming extended beings. So it's meant to be an extended machine, an extended biological machine. Every artery, every vein, ventricle, heart, tissue, everything else is all of this is meant for messages to be sent. It's a message center. Every physical body is set up to be a message center. This is why you have nerves that have to be stimulated in order for movement to take place. It has to be stimulated by what? By sensation, by touch. And touch deals with what? Tone, frequency, right? Sensations, messages. Without these messages going in throughout the body is useless, right? When a body is paralyzed, right, that means that nerves are damaged and they can't pick up messages. They can't pick up transmission, right? And if they can't pick up messages and transmission through the ventricles, the arteries and things like that, then part of the body is malfunctioning. It is supposed to serve as a receiver and a transmitter for messages. Every part of it. Your whole body works off of transition of messages and reception of messages and the dispersion of messages. If you don't have proper flow of the blood throughout the body, throughout the ventricles and things like that, and pumped out of the heart, right, which is carrying all sorts of minerals and things like that, rich minerals through the blood, through these ventricles, through these arteries and things like large arteries. If you don't have that, those precious metals are meant to carry also the messages and whatnot, tone and frequency throughout, right? It helps to pull those messages in because you need, in anything, you need copper, you need elements of copper, gold and things like that to be receivers, which they put on satellites and things like that to pull in messages. So you need the same elements in your body from the earth to pull in messages. This is why you have these elements like copper, zinc, selenium, and all these things in your body, because they're meant to be receivers for messages. If your body is not receiving messages at the speed it's supposed to receive it at, then you start to suffer health problems, because every true health problem is due to a transmission that's out of alignment. What do I mean by that? Your body reacts to messages being sent to it via sunlight. When you don't have this proper sunlight going into the body, vitamin D and things like that, which is actually sending messages for the body to function off of, is receiving those messages, those transmissions through the brain or through the mind and into the brain, and going into these different nerve centers and things like that. So all of these ventricles, arteries are nothing but wires and cables. They can be likened unto wires and cables, right? And what are wires and cables for? Wires and cables are to send pictures, tone, frequency, all of these things into a what? Box. Into a box to produce pictures, right? When you have cable, you have wires, right? You have cable wires and things of that nature. You have wires in your radios and all this other stuff. That is the same way your body's set up. It's not everything in your body is like wires. It's cables for extensions, so that all of these messages are meant to flow through your body, so that you're able to exist to receive messages. When people are talking to you and the messages are going inside of you're hearing the messages, and the messages carry a certain tone and a frequency, right? It's going in to your ears, it's going into your mind, into your brain, right? And your mind is discerning what's being said. You're hearing the frequency, the tone, and you are discerning mentally what's being said to you. You're deciphering what's being said to you. You're figuring out what's being said to you, right? Certain parts of your body are reacting to what's being said to you through these frequencies and tones. Each part of your body is receiving these messages. Every last bit of your organs, your ventricles, your arteries and things like that, your veins, everything, are meant to speed these messages throughout your body. And you start to move as these messages are going through you, as these messages are being received in the mind and going through the brain and going through these nerve endings and things like that throughout the brain, and it starts movement. These are nothing but cables, wires, antennas. And if things are out of alignment in any one of these cables and any one of these wires in you, there is sickness, heart disease, bad circulation, right? The blood can't get through, the flow can't get through. That means that these elements and minerals in your blood can't get through these ventricles and arteries and things like that, so that these messages can get through. When you don't have that oxygen that's carrying those rich elements throughout the bloodstream, right, through these ventricles and arteries and things like that, when something's blocked, that means the messages are blocked. What'll happen? When somebody starts to talk to you, you'll start to short circuit or pass out. You'll get light in the head when there's not proper circulation of these elements, of these minerals throughout the bloodstream, which is needed for the reception of messages to keep you moving. You live off of messages. Your body lives off of messages. Without those messages going throughout your body, you cannot live. Without those messages being carried, without those elements being carried throughout your bloodstream, those minerals and things that you need throughout your bloodstream to strengthen and to keep those arteries, ventricles, veins, all these things that are cables and wires throughout your body strong enough to receive and carry these messages through, then you will die. Messages have to be transmitted every single second, every millisecond, to continue you living, to constantly carry your life forward. Without those messages going through your body, without those messages going through those cables and through those wires, you will die. You're an advanced message center. That's what TVs are, cable boxes, radios. They're message centers. They're message boxes. In fact, they were actually designed after the human bodies, after the physical bodies. This is why when they put out a message, they knew how to put out messages and program you. Same way they program a machine. They program people the same way, through television programs, through radio programs. The frequency, they know that your mind works on the reception and the transmission of frequency that goes in and is carried throughout these cables in your body called veins and these wires called arteries, and the nerve centers that work off of touch, right, and flow of blood and nerve centers. They know that these messages have to be carried throughout your body in order for you to exist. When your mind is no longer receiving messages, when there's no magnetic attraction coming from the sun into the mind and going through the brain and going throughout the body's nervous system, right, or the biological structure, cables in those wires, what happens? They say you're brain dead. It's the same way if you take the main cable out of the back of your cable box. There's no picture. There's no light. There's no frequency. There's no tone. There's nothing going through there. Same thing. Everything in your body can be corrected really through messages. Through strong and intense light messages, anything in your body can be fixed. When you have cancer, they try to do something called radiation, or they put you through radiology. Radio. So they are actually performing treatment that is based on the transmission of messages and frequency. But the problem is that if they're not in tune, they don't know the tone and the tune in which the messages are moving through your body, it can burn or short out your system, throw off the natural transmission and reception of your biological structure and makeup, because everyone has a tone and a certain frequency on which your body sends messages. Everybody don't send messages the same way. Your body won't respond to things a certain way. That's why when they do radiology and the chemo and all this other stuff, certain people will go into remission with cancer, or even though you don't need to do that, but certain people will go into remission, or certain people will die from it. Certain cells will be destroyed because your body responds to different radio messages or radio frequencies different than other people. So if these transmissions are being sent through the body, right, through these cables, through these wires, right, in order to keep you moving, in order to program you, like I said, this is the main reason why they constantly go about setting up media systems, because they know that every single person on the planet goes along the lines of a transmitter and a receiver. They know that you go along the lines of it. They know it's the same principle in which your body works off is the same as any electronical or mechanical object works off of. Radio, TV, right? Same thing. In order for you to carry telepathic ability, you have to be able to receive the same televised messages that a television receives, right? You have to be able to receive the same programs, the same tones and frequencies, see the same exact things. You're not living just to be taking up space and existing. You're here to pick up messages. And the messages usually go into you to do certain things, to keep up, a certain purpose on the planet, right? You exist to keep up a certain purpose on the planet. You're given healthy limbs, right? Like machines. And in fact, when even the white man's discovering this, when you say your heart stopped working, right, or whatever, you need an organ transplant, he uses mechanical parts. He's trying to get off more into that. He's trying to use machine parts, mechanical parts. He did that with the leg, right? You see the bionic legs and stuff, like the bionic arms, and they have wires and things on them, right? And you can move these things. Now, how is it that you're able to function with a bionic leg or a bionic arm or mechanical heart or a pacemaker? How are you able to function with these things that work off of transmission frequency, that work off of that? How are you able to live with these things if you're not somewhat on the same level? You couldn't live with these things inside of your body if they were foreign to you. They're not foreign to you because you are the same form of transmitting machine and reception machine. Your nerves, your lungs, your kidneys, your ventricles, right? All of these things are meant to flow messages through, transmit messages. See, once they end up breaking into that wall and having an understanding of what the junk DNA, what they call junk DNA is, meaning unused genetic material, once they understand what that's for, it's supposed to be for the extension of certain people's lives, to break through that wall so that you can carry more memory, more messages, more light, more power, which then you go into the telepathic abilities, which again is another form of reception and transmission. That's when the body gets stronger. More arteries are formed. More muscles are formed. And in that junk DNA is the power, the extended energy, the extended message to regenerate damaged arteries, ventricles, anything, any body part, because like I said, these are all cables. They have within the junk DNA the material to fix damaged arteries, to repair them, repair damaged nerves, right? It carries it in the messages. They found out by mistake This was going to get people to heal faster, and black people, so-called black people, have this. You have an extended message center, right? And if your message center, if your veins, your arteries, and all of the things that carry messages through the blood, if these things are strong, then that means they have a strong connection that can heal and take messages through. Because everything from how you're going to grow, how tall you're going to grow, how much muscle you're going to develop, all of these things are already genetically in you as messages. Encodes, they call them. They call encodes. What is an encode? An encode is a message. When you see people who have a problem clotting, is because that flow of energy, that flow of power is not going through their veins, not going through their arteries, not going through the ventricles and things like that. There's a blockage somewhere. The blockage is not in the blood. The blockage is in the arteries and in the cables and the so-called cables of arteries, the veins and all the large veins, the intestines, all these things. These are all meant to carry messages throughout them. You simplify as just that: nerve endings, nerve centers. All the diseases that you have is based on blockage of these messages that are going through the nerve endings and through the frequencies and things, going through the nerve endings, through the ventricles and veins and things like that. Because each time the blood passes through veins, right, capillaries, all these things, each time the blood passes through, they're carrying messages. They're carrying messages on them. They're encodes. And where do the messages come from? They come from sunlight. That's why they'll say they could tell, if you notice in your blood, they can tell by taking the blood test, they can tell if you are low in vitamin D. They can tell if you are low in certain minerals in your blood and all this stuff. They can tell anything by the blood, because your blood carries the messages through. Your pancreas receives messages. Your appendix receives messages. So when people get these pulled out of them, it slows down the messaging in that area of the body. And you have to also realize what is the message you're supposed to be receiving. That's another thing that can either shorten or extend your life. What message are you supposed to be receiving? When somebody sends the wrong messages, transmission frequency that you're not able to pass through or receive, you get stressed. You get stressed. The stress puts pressure on your heart, arteries, things of that nature. There's a stress factor, and where there's stress, there's blockage. Those messages that you need to come from sunlight to go throughout your body are not getting through where they're supposed to, because you're busy putting energy into blocked messages that are blocking your thinking and your reception. The energy is the messages. That's the energy. If they're empty messages, there's no energy on it. Even with the stem cell research, even with trying to come up with artificial nerve endings, they don't go for obviously they're not working for the extension or the life of the messages that are going through the body. They don't work. They might not be as advanced to carry the messages like they want, because you're looking at things that they're making artificially, right, to carry a natural source of energy through it. The last thing that was created that was artificial to carry natural source of energy didn't work, and that was your human race. Your human race represent that artificial race of beings that was created on the planet that was meant to carry natural energy through, but they couldn't, which was sunlight, which is why they burn. So it's the same thing where they try to create artificial veins, arteries, things like that. It doesn't carry through. The artificial things they're trying to create that were damaged doesn't carry through the energy and the light of the sun. It doesn't carry it through the body as if the natural ones would. Like I said, we're the only ones that can carry it through totally. Your biological structure dictates that only logical transmissions go throughout your body. That only logical transmissions and receptions go through your brain, go through your mind, go through your brain for the extension of your life. Go through your body, go through your ventricles, auricles that's carrying these messages. Only logical messages. That's why you have a biological logical makeup. It is only meant for logical transmission to go through there. Emotion is an illogical transmission. Things that are meant to work against the logical flow of messages in your body. Emotion. So when you do illogical things, you work against the biological messages that are going through your system. The emotion literally blocks out the transmission of logical thought. This is why we got to do away with emotion. Your brain cells are circuits. And if these circuits have things going inside of them that's going to slow down the messages, then guess what? You even might be suffering from a form of autism. You'll be suffering from a form of dementia, right? Alzheimer's. All this is nothing but blockage, nerve blockage. So what needs to happen, our people need to seek out herbs and, even using sound treatment, where you're going to start to treat the nerve centers and the nerve endings that are damaged with sound therapy, right? Where it could be forms of music, it could be forms of drums or certain loud tones or medium tones that'll help bring those neurotransmitters and the reception of messages back in alignment. You're supposed to be receiving messages into the genetic material, which then triggers the telepathy, the psychometry, the clairvoyance, the intuition, the advanced mental capabilities, and physical capabilities that will come along with it. You're the only ones that are qualified because you have the extended genetic material, or DEA, not DNA, it's DEA. Because your humans got DNA, deoxynucleic acid is for those artificial people, or the humans that were created. They have that artificial genetic makeup, which is DNA. We have the natural or supernatural genetic makeup, which is DEA, deoxyelectroalkali. This is what's in our blood. And the messages that we're supposed to be getting is supposed to be messages that are extending us into the future, because that's what the messages are for. The messages that come through the sunlight are growing us into advanced beings. It's supposed to be growing us into advanced beings. And if you're not getting those messages, you're going to be slowed down, right? You're not going to grow. Your growth is going to be stunted mentally, physically, and soulfully. The humans can't even receive all of the message, because as the transmission of the sun, and that sunlight is coming onto the planet, they're not receiving the transmission of those messages because they are artificial beings. They can't process the sunlight and the messages, which is why they have to mix their seed, right, with our people and other races to create a neutral race so that they can process the light messages that are coming from the sun better than if it was just Caucasians, right, or these other races of people who lack carbon coding, right, who have a lack of it, or have their artificial carbon coding, which is known as melanin, right, which they call melanin, which is not really a real element. Your nerve endings are laced with carbon for reception and transmission, so you can pick up messages. Without that carbon lace, without those heavy carbon lacings on your nerves, within your bones, within your brain, within the neuros, and within the neural centers and the path centers of the brain, there is no reception. A big part of the regeneration is to have that blood, those messages, that memory going forward, those messages flowing through the body. And in order for those messages to flow through the body as they're supposed to, the right messages, you have to block out the ignorant messages, like we call it ignorant communication, because they store in your brain. Ignorance stores in your brain. Ignorant communication will store in your brain. A biological machine. You are all biological machines. You so-called black people are supposed to be advanced biological machines. The other races of people are enhanced biological machines. They are enhanced. You are advanced. You are advanced because you already came with a genetic makeup that was perfect, that was suited for a solar environment, that could receive messages and messages that were supposed to extend the genetic material that they call junk.
It's the Republic of Mentellect, rising out the black race to the white race, out the black race to the white race. It's the Republic of Mentellect, black race to the white race. If it's hell, and then it's hell us. They tried everything just to spell us. Fed us religion, gave us fake gods. Through all of that, we beat the odds. Now we coming together under one flag. Colors red, gold, and blue. Superman, Superwoman, that's me and you. The infinite capabilities